And I just remember being so freaked out, and like I was like, oh, this is fun. But then we're walking to the stadium, like we're crossing the bridge over the expressway, and I just got chills. I was like, this is the greatest moment of my life.
I've walked over that road so many times. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm sure it's probably what a lot of kids have gone through when they go to like Disneyland or Disney World or something. It's just like it didn't hit me until we're walking into the stadium, and then we walk inside and you see the ring, and I was like, this is everything that I've been watching on TV all my life. And like it hit me that this was a thing that I really cared about when I was probably like a teenager. When I'm like skipping, going out with friends to watch like a pay-per-view, or like I'd rather spend like my Monday night watching Raw. Well, obviously that would be my Monday night. That was my thing to do. And like it was just really important to me growing up as a kid. And the funny thing is that I felt like I had to hide it like a lot of the time, and because no one else that I knew watched it.
Really?
And yeah, no one. Like I had my little brother, who's like 3-4 years younger than me. We watched it together so we could share that. But I mean, at like 4 years, so when I'm like 13, he's still too young for like me to really like have a conversation, about wrestling. So I didn't really have like wrestling friends. And so I feel like that's why I kind of am the way I am now. Like I'm like loud and proud about it, because I feel like I spent, made like 25 years hiding it. And now I don't care. Like, I'm in my 30s, and I just kind of like don't care that anybody knows that I like wrestling. And like all my coworkers know. Like everybody knows in my life. If you are close to me, if we're friends or we're family, you know that I'm super into wrestling.
Now, is your brother still into it, or did he lose interest in it?
So what's interesting is that I think he just got married, and he had a baby, and I think he's his life is a little different.
Right.
And so I think he's like, life has sort of had him like fall out of it a little bit.
Right.
But then when the network, okay, my dog is hitting the computer, sorry.
I have a dog over here too somewhere. Yeah.
When the network, when they premiered the network and I subscribed, I texted him randomly. I texted him a password and my username.
Right.
And then I'm thinking like maybe he'll use it, maybe he won't use it. And then I'd go in to my account and see all these like previously watched shows. Like he's super into Edge and Christian, because I'm not watching those.
Nice.
So like, and now that there's a new thing that you can't share accounts and then things like that. And so like they just announced it earlier this week. Like I think they'll only limit it to like one device at a time. So my brother and I have it worked out, and I really hope nobody from WWE is listening to this, but we have it worked out where he texts me before he gets on the network. So we know when like the other one's on the network, and we just make sure that we're not on it at the same time.
I got you.
So he's back into it, and he's back into it, and he's super into NXT.
Really?
Yeah, I mean I almost feel like he doesn't even watch the main product.
Really?
Like he only watches NXT. And I surmise this from when I go to events and I give him a call. I'm like, oh, you want me to grab you something like a T-shirt or whatever? He wants like Finn Balor, like Samoa Joe. Like he asked me to get a Finn Balor T-shirt for the baby, and I was like, I don't think they make those. But like it was really cute. So I think and I accidentally called NXT Indie Wrestling once.
And he freaked out?
Freaked out. Yeah, freaked out on me. Yeah. It's so funny. I was like, okay, like relax. And this was on Facebook. And I was like, hey, look, 90% of the people on our shared Facebook don't know what NXT is. So
exactly.
It's like there's no need to defend its honor on a Facebook post. So it was really funny. But I think he's back into it, like he uses my account, and I mean we don't really talk about it the way that we did when we were kids.
Right.
But I'm just happy that he's back into it, like and that he's not like trying to hide it the way I know a lot of adults still do. So I'm just happy that he's like still into it.
It's weird. My kid, I have a 7-year-old son, and we actually went to NXT when it was here in Jacksonville. And he liked it. I mean, he wanted a Finn Balor shirt because he liked the mask.
Right.
but
Oh yeah.
he could watch it or not watch it. Like he likes there's all these vines. Apparently, I see a puppy nose.
Yeah, there's a dog.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's okay. There's all these vines out there now, like of like John Cena, like giving people
Right.
and doing the
Right.
whole thing,
Or
and
like like RKO's out of nowhere and things
exactly,
like
he
that.
loves
Yeah.
that. He thinks that's the best thing. So occasionally
Right.
he'll run into the room and give me an RKO or
Yeah.
scream or just scream John Cena and
Oh,
walk.
I love that.
But like
That's so cute.
he's picked up the terminology. Like he'll be like,
Hmm.
you're being a heel dad, or you're not playing the baby face and stuff like that.
But so do you feel like he likes it as much as you did at that age?
No, no, he is a
Yeah.
science fiction geek. He takes after my wife. Star Wars.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Right, right.
comic books.
Hmm.
Spider-Man, Marvel.
Right. So he likes it, but it's not like his life.
Exactly. Like I would watch wrestling. I've gotten back into it now after meeting you
Hmm.
guys and Damien and stuff.
Hmm.
But like, I find it really entertaining. I love the soap.
Yeah.
I love the soap opera aspect of
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And
Exactly.
he's not bothered by it. He's just like, I don't want to watch.
Yeah.
You know what he thought was cool the day after the Blizzard, or when Raw they showed the 3-man pay-per-view match, the Lesnar, Rollins, and was it Roman Reigns or whatever?
Yeah, I think so.
That he was impressed by that match. He thought that was
Okay.
cool, and
So maybe he just has good taste.
I guess he does. He's very he's a connoisseur. He likes how Brock
Right.
Lesnar is like a heel, but people cheer him. He's trying to understand that, and I'm like, people like bad guys sometimes, and he kind of gets that and stuff like that. So what are you gonna do?
Maybe show him some select matches from the Attitude Era and see if what he thinks of those. I mean, like the Golden Age, like maybe he really just has good taste, and like if you show him something from like 99 or 98, he might love it.
Absolutely.
You never know.
Like I used to, like I said, I used to watch boxing all the time with my dad. He has no interest in boxing. One time he walked in when UFC was on, and he saw Mark Hunt fighting Bigfoot, and he said,
"Oh, that's perfect."
Yeah, he thought that was cool. He said, Bigfoot has an interesting face. Why does he have such an interesting face? Now, the correct answer is they don't have good neonatal care in the favelas in Brazil. But you can't really say that to your 7-year-old.
No, really, you can't explain that.
And I said, well, that's just his face. His mom loves him, and I'm sure his wife loves him. And he said, what do you think Mark Hunt's tattoos are about? And I said, well, it's a tribal thing. I think he's an ethnic New Zealand Maori, and he goes, yeah, but he lives in Australia now. And I go, yes, he does. He goes, they're fighting in Australia. And I said, yes, they are. And he goes, do you think Mark drove himself to the fight tonight? And I said, I have no idea. He goes, well, that's all I wanted to know. And he got up and he walked out of the room, and that was it.
That's all he was interested in.
That was always in it, is the Bigfoot's face, Mark's tattoos, and if he drove himself to the fight that night.
Man.
So,
maybe show him a couple more of Mark Hunt's like knockouts.
I love Mark Hunt. I love Mark Hunt. I love him.
Because that's the thing. He would have had to stick around for a little bit longer because Mark Hunt's chin is kind of crazy.
Yeah, he's getting old.
Yeah, I mean, so his matches can last kind of long.
They're funny when it goes
His chin is just
when he's like gasping and he has no cardio and he's all old and stuff like that.
That's why he has to knock him out right away.
Exactly. Like he did to Frank Mir.
To the third round.
One punch, Mir.
Yeah,
goes
that
down.
was amazing.
Yeah, and I love the Mark Hunt walk away knockout. He
Right, exactly. It's so badass.
Yeah, it really is.
It's so badass. I'm sorry for this dog's now.
No,
I
please.
really won't.
Puppy dog's name.
Yeah.
Hey, Max.
This is Max, and he wants to.
Hi, Max.
Oh, he perked
How you
up a little
doing?
bit.
I didn't know where Parker is. My dog Parker is hanging. He's probably under the bed or something like that. So okay, were you like? I was a wrestling fan all through high school, and then in college, I lost touch because I didn't have TV. So.
Mm-hmm. Did you fall off? Right. That's exactly what happened to me. So I right when I went to college, I didn't have cable. And there was no, like YouTube, or like YouTube was in its infancy. I mean, I definitely couldn't like watch Raw on like YouTube or anything. There was definitely no Hulu, no Netflix at the time. And so it's like there was just no way, and then I was too chicken shit to ask
Yeah.
like anybody to record it for me. You know, I've heard there's stories of people when they went to college, they
Right.
just had someone record it for them and then they would watch it later. But you know, I'm a girl. I'm in college. It's my first time like on my own. I'm not gonna go like find somebody to
Right.
go. And my parents weren't gonna do it. My parents spent I would probably say, 25 years hoping that I would let go of like
Yeah.
this affection that I have for wrestling. I think my mom was hoping that I just grow out of it. And I think she's finally succumbed to the fact that I'm a wrestling fan, except for the fact that she was over
Right.
during, I think, Royal Rumble. And she goes, this is fake, right? And I was like, are you serious, Mom? Like, I know she was just trying to like give me a hard time, but having had her said that to me so many times, it was it hurt a little bit. It's like, oh, my heart's like, even though I knew she was joking, because if you're a real wrestling fan,
Absolutely.
that question always hurts. It like never gets any better. Like it doesn't matter who's asking you, even if it's a joke, it stings. Like it always stings. Like, no matter
what else were you into growing up as a kid and into adulthood and stuff like that?
Yeah. So it's funny because
Tell me
wrestling's
about
pretty much the
yourself.
only thing
Like,
that
yeah,
survived.
like you got an interesting
Um,
backstory.
yeah, because right. Well, so what's interesting is that I really also got into
Okay.
the '90s Atlanta Braves. So I was a diehard Braves fan in the '90s, and I remember two very, very hard cries in my life, where I just, like my body was like convulsing, and it was just you couldn't stop crying. One was my mom grounded me during a Raw, and there was a really important storyline going on with Shawn Michaels, and I was like gonna miss
Right.
it. And there's no TiVo, so it's like once I missed it, I missed it. And then when the Braves lost the World Series in '96. Because no
Right.
one else in the house was supporting me. Like I was the only Braves fan, and they were just watching to watch because it was the World Series. But like, nobody like sympathized, and so I just like they lost, and I ran upstairs and I cried so hard into my pillow, and and the interesting thing is that I was
Right.
really into that team, because I didn't really after that team sort of disbanded, I didn't really stay with it. And I still watch baseball now, but I don't have like a favorite team or anything. It's still I still watch during the World Series and things like that, but I don't follow any particular team. Plus, I've moved around a lot, so it's really
Sure.
hard to have like a home team. And it's tough because I don't like the Cubs or the White Sox at all. Like, I have no feelings for them. If anything, maybe leans
Right.
towards hate. But like, so I mean, I'll watch the World Series and stuff, and basketball. I'll watch like the finals. So right now, I got into football like a couple of years ago, and so that's it's really the main things that I focus on now are football,
Oh,
UFC,
really? Oh,
and
excellent.
wrestling.
Okay. And
Yeah,
do you go to the Bears
yeah.
games or?
No, so a friend of mine converted me
Oh no!
to the Cowboys. And it's literally the worst thing that
That's
anybody's done to
horrible.
me in my entire life, because it's like, yeah, because it's only been the last 10 years. So I don't know about the '90s. Like I don't know anything about the glory years or the triplets or anything. All I know is an underperforming
Yeah.
team for the last like 10 years. And it's like being an abused dog is
Right.
what I like to tell people. It's like every season, like you kind of hope like, and then you see the
Yeah.
first game and you're like, no, it's just going to be another one of those. And so I like to joke that becoming a Cowboys fan in the last 10 years was the worst thing somebody could ever do to me. But I'm still there. I'm sticking around. I mean, 2 years ago was a magical season. We'll see what happens. Let's see what happens with these
I've
draft
been
picks
by
that they
the
picked up.
newer
So
stadium in the last few years. It looks gorgeous.
hmm oh,
Yeah.
it's amazing. Yeah. Yeah, so because I used to live in Dallas, and so that was fun being a Cowboy fan and living in Dallas for 4 years. I would tell anybody, even if you're not even a football fan,
Yeah.
to go and see that stadium. I mean, it's a work of art. It's crazy. The screen, the big screen it goes for like
Wow.
70 yards. I mean, it's like it's huge. You could see they put Jason Witten up on the screen, and I saw where
Wow.
he missed himself shaving. Like I
Wow.
saw like a little bit of stubble. Like
Yeah.
it's that HD and it's that huge, and but it's worth like if you have some time in Dallas to go and like take a tour of the stadium or see an event. There's nothing else. I mean, I've been to a lot of like baseball stadiums and um, all over the world, and that stadium
Wow,
is just
that's a hearty
unbelievable.
endorsement. You know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
if you were the booker or the writer for wrestling, would you what would how would you do
Oh
things
gosh.
differently? You share and then I'll share. I have some specific ideas, some bullet points.
Oh, I don't
Really?
really think about it that deeply. Yeah, I mean, like I watch it, and I like
Right.
the surprise. Like the joke is that you
Sure.
can fantasy book however you want in WWE.
Right.
Like we'll just do the opposite. Like exactly the opposite of the way everybody wants it to be. And so I go into it not really expecting anything because I like that surprise. Like when Seth Rollins cashed
Did
in
you
last
really?
year, I lost my mind. And I mean, I easily could have fantasy booked that myself, but I didn't. Like I don't try and like think of the outcomes that deeply because I still like the suspense and the drama, and I like
Yeah.
marking out. Like I like when they advertise me. So like it's funny because he came out and I lost my mind, and then I thought for a minute, I'm like, yeah, I probably should have seen that coming. Like he was gonna cash in, of course. Like the logical side of me after like the 10 seconds of freaking out is like, yeah, that's a logical thing to happen. But I mean that's the beautiful thing about wrestling is that now as an adult, I mean it really is an escape because like I choose to suspend my disbelief when I watch wrestling, and I'm genuinely entertained. It's not one of those things that I try to dissect too much, or like think about too hard, and suddenly it doesn't become the thing that you love. It becomes something that
So
you're
you have
working
a
with.
real
You know
sort
what I
of
mean? So
gentle, youthful, for lack of a better term, love of the sport.
mhm.
It's not like you know what you're talking about, but you
Yeah,
don't really analyze it too much. You get
no, not too much because I mean it's just it's art, it's drama. I mean, I was an English major, and the way that being an English
sure,
major works is that you read a lot of books, and then you go sit in the classroom, and every 10
right?
people have 10 different opinions about it, and so you have to look at it the same way. You can fantasy book, and there are things like, oh, what are the odds that Reigns was gonna cash in at WrestleMania, blah blah blah. You can look at logic and things like that, but I mean, at the end of the day, like anything can happen. Why not let your mind go there and just be open to whatever's going to happen, and not think too hard about it. I mean, I don't know. Like if I really thought too hard about like what was going to happen next, I really wouldn't enjoy it the way that I enjoy it. I really just sit there and like
Right.
consume it and digest it and
So
enjoy what
like
I'm doing and
when like
watching.
the Triple H music comes on, don't you groan? Don't you like roll your eyes and stuff like
Yeah.
that?
No, see that's the thing, and that's why I took this new moniker of
Yeah.
the Marky Smart because I'm so much more Marky than I am Smarky, because like I'm a
Right.
happy, positive fan. Like I know there are things about the product now that people, yeah, they groan. Like the Roman Reigns has gotten so much heat. Like everybody,
Yeah.
and I don't really care. Like that they're pushing him. I actually wrote a little piece and I posted it on Facebook that he's the perfect champion right now. And so it's like
Sure.
I look for ways to like it. You know what I mean? I'm not going into it looking for the things that I hate. I'm looking for the things that I like. I'm looking for the wrestlers that I gravitate towards. I'm looking towards the storylines that I like, and like
Right.
I'm not
Right. You're
looking to pick it
smart.
apart.
See, me, I get all
Hmm.
invested in it and I pull my hair out and I go, 20.
Right. No, I do that enough with like football and like there, there's other things in life
Exactly.
to do that with. So
Like, I missed out on the whole
yeah,
CM Punk thing. Like, I wasn't watching during his rise. Like, you're from Chicago now. Did you see him around
right,
town?
right, yeah. No, so I also I missed out on that too. Because I had college, and then after college I was working, and
Yeah.
I was just like a young 20 something, and it's funny because like being a 20 something girl, being a wrestling fan isn't really the most attractive thing, or it
Yeah.
doesn't really get you the dates. So I wasn't really I really wasn't into it, like during that time, and sadly I missed. I know a lot of great wrestling, and so I've heard, and I've gone back on the network and watched a little bit, but it's not
Yeah,
the same thing. Like you have to like go through it. Like if you just sit there and like watch
right.
like a whole year that you missed,
Yeah.
it's still never the same thing. So I missed the CM Punk era, and I have to say I do get annoyed when I go to events here in Chicago and the
Really?
CM Punk chants are still going on. Like those are the times when I get annoyed because it's been 3 years and it's like, you know, because to me those are the fans that are, I
Right.
assume, too smarky. Like they're just too negative about everything, and wrestling is something you're supposed to enjoy. And so if you hate it so much, like why are you here? Like this is not entertainment anymore. You're just subjecting yourself to torture. So it's like, I don't know. Like I really am not down with the CM Punk chants. So and I go to all the events here. Raw was last
Yeah.
Monday. I was just there. I was
Okay.
just. Oh no, I was at Payback. I was at Payback on Sunday. And I had like smarky fans next to me, and kind of ruined the experience. But most of the time, I have a good time. But like when they do the CM Punk chants, that's
It's
when I
like,
roll
but
my
like
eyes.
during that period, do you know secondhand now, like what was real versus what was scripted? Like the whole pipe bomb speech.
Oh yeah. Oh, I've watched the pipe bomb. The pipe bomb was amazing. And that's the hard thing. And you know what I mean? Like you can go back and watch it, but can you
Yeah.
imagine like watching that live? Like as a fan that's been a fan for a long time, who's seen everything, I can only imagine what I would have felt watching it live. I would have been screaming at the
Yeah.
TV. I'm like, this is not happening. Like, what is
Yeah.
going on? Where's Vince? Why aren't they cutting away? Like, it's tough. Like I can watch it now, but I can only
So
imagine
they
what
had
my
to
actual
expect
reaction
that,
would
or
have
at least
been.
know a little bit of what he was going to talk about, right?
It's tough. I don't know. Like I can't definitively say because you can read, like you can go back and read Wikipedia, and there's people that are like,
Yeah.
oh, it's a work, it's a shoot. I mean, you're gonna get a million different stories about it. But yeah, that's what I mean about not experiencing it yourself. Because when you experience it live, you take it in and you digest it the way that you want. So you create the story in your head of what you want it to be. So that's why I don't like to fantasy book things too much. Like
Right.
I want to take it in and make my mind up about it at
I
that
got a
moment
couple
about what I
wrestlers, well,
think about
several
it.
wrestlers. I'm just going to go through them. You tell me what comes to mind, okay? Chris Jericho.
Yeah. Okay. Uh, um,
Yeah.
so early Chris Jericho was amazing. I mean, early 2000s Chris Jericho. I mean, when he debuted, because I was still watching, I was definitely watching WCW at the time. So I saw him in WCW. I only watched WCW and WWE, by the way. People are shocked that I didn't watch ECW or, I don't really watch any of the indies. Like, I am a true like WWE WCW mark. Like that's the product that I watched, and so I'm sure Jericho was around before that, but the
Right.
first time I saw him was WCW, and I was super excited when he went to WWE and he was finally getting a push. The sad thing is that his run now is
Yeah.
he's brilliant, but it's ruining it a little bit, because when he's on the mic and he's delivering a promo and he's
Right.
being like an A+ heel, I'm like he's head and shoulders like above everybody else. I mean, he's running a clinic on
Right.
how you cut a promo, a heel promo. But then the other times when he's not,
He
he's
really
just an
is.
old man, like when he's wrestling.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, so when he's like somebody, he's doing a man that shouldn't be there, and it's tough because I remember
Me
his
too.
debut like it was yesterday. I mean, the little ponytail and everything, and it's
Yep.
like the like metallic shirt. I mean, it's that's the hard thing is that like you remember his debut so clearly, and then you just see this old man now. It's tough for me to see
Yeah.
the wrestlers when they're older. Like it's always a
In
shock to me.
particular,
I
if
don't
they
know
go
why.
away and wrestle
Um,
overseas and you don't see them, and then they come back, you're like, wow,
right.
this person's aged. Like
Yeah. Right, exactly. I mean, the one that still gets me all the time is
Yes.
Lex Luger for some
Yes.
reason. Like every time I see him, I was like, oh, I didn't expect this. Like I totally didn't expect him to
Yeah.
look like this, but I don't know. It's just he always like when I see him on they do the
Yeah.
Monday Night Wars and they
Like
interview him, and
he's
I'm
had
like, oh
health
my
issues,
god,
right?
this is
Hasn't he had a
not.
stroke and all that stuff? And
Yeah.
he- dr-
Yeah. Right, because I mean, a lot of them still look pretty good. Like Scott Hall,
Yeah.
Kevin Nash, Bret Hart. He was there on Sunday. He looked
Yeah.
great. I mean, he had a little like belly, but I mean, he looked like Bret, just a little gray hair. But Lex Luger to me is like that's totally not what I expected to see. So I was shocked when I see him.
AJ Styles. I love him too.
I love him. He's my current favorite. I'm still at heart like a 12-year-old girl, so I like develop crushes, and he's my current crush. And it took a while because I didn't know him from New Japan. New Japan is something that I'm trying to educate myself
Me
on.
too.
Like it's new to me. I'm seeing all these guys coming over, and so I'm trying to like watch old matches. And so when he debuted in WWE, that was the first
Really?
time I saw AJ Styles. And then so I saw, yeah, well, no, you know what? I saw him when he debuted in WCW, and I didn't realize that I saw him until like after a couple weeks of like watching him wrestle, because I'm like, I know that name. I feel like I've seen him, and like he just. If you look at his stuff from like WCW, he's such a kid.
Yeah.
Like he's not the same. It's like you have a kid in WCW, and then you have like a man coming into WWE, and so that's why I didn't recognize him right away. So technically, I have seen him wrestle before. I just never saw any of his actual career in the middle. TNA or New Japan. So literally, I saw him when he debuted as a kid in WCW, and then fast forward like 15, 20 years or something, and now I'm seeing him in WWE. And I
Right.
reserved judgment. I was like, okay, he's supposed to be really great. Because I was hearing things like he's currently like the best wrestler in the world, like all sorts of like superfluous compliments about him. And so I was like, all right, let me just like see what this guy's about. And at first, because they didn't give him the mic or anything at first, so he didn't cut any promos. He just like showed up, and there was like a huge pop, and he showed up at Royal Rumble, and everybody's freaking out. So I was like, okay, I like the songs. I was like, okay, maybe this is like worth investing in, and it just like over time he's they've put him on the mic more, and this feud that he has with Reigns has really showed off how good he is, and he's just currently my favorite. Like I totally get it now. Like it took a while. Like if you asked me in February or even like early March, I'd be like, yeah, he's okay. Like I don't get the big deal, like whatever. But like now I'm like, live and die for AJ Styles. Yeah, I love him, and I go back and watch the New Japan stuff to see him, but I don't. It's weird. I don't like.
Oh
him as
wow!
It's not the same feeling. Yeah. Like seeing him now as like a face, I like that, and then when I go and try and watch Bullet Club stuff, like I'm like, don't do the gun thing, like it's just like it doesn't appeal to me. It's really weird. I mean, it's the same guy. It's like a year apart. But I don't like him as a heel, and that happens sometimes. Like you can have a favorite wrestler and they turn the character, and suddenly it's like, oops, like you don't like it anymore.
Did you see the match where he won the title in Japan? I forget the Japanese guy he wrestled, but that Japanese guy, Okada or something like that. But that was when he like the Bullet Club. They didn't realize he was going to be part of the Bullet Club, and he's wrestling for the title. I just gave away a big storyline, but it's. You couldn't ask for a better match. Like drama, whatever you want, booking or whatever. Yeah, and the Japanese guy, as much as a superstar, the guy who just came over to NXT is, and he is. I forget what's the guy's name. Yeah, this other guy,
Nakamura,
who is they've wrestled 100 times against each other, is amazing. And I wish I could remember his name, but it's.
You'll have to send me the match, because I mean, it's such a blur, especially since I started like all this like wrestling twittering and things like that. Like I'm consuming wrestling like 24/7, and so a lot of the new stuff that I'm trying to learn hasn't really stuck yet. So it's like I might have seen that match.
I will,
but
I will. And just as far as like the storytelling, you couldn't ask for a better match. I'll have to look for it. While we're talking, tell everybody. Tell everybody about your podcast and where they can meet you, like all that stuff.
Yeah. So you can find me on Twitter at the Marky.
Such a great name.
That's all one word. I just I just came up with it this weekend because I've been doing so much podcasting and tweeting that I figured I needed a moniker. And so you can find me at the Marky Smark on Twitter, on Instagram, Facebook. So I took all the platforms, and I podcast with Damian Gracia, and he's at Dare2bDamian, all one word. So and it's the number 2 and the letter B. Dare2bDamian. He's on Twitter as well. You can find his stuff on SoundCloud and TalkShoe. And so I've done about 4 or 5 episodes with him. We just released, I think, our 5th one tonight. So, I mean, I just met him through Twitter. I mean, he was just a friend. He was interested in wrestling. We started talking. We hit it off. And, you know, we recorded our first podcast together. And that was the first time we've ever spoken. I mean, we hadn't even Skyped like you and I are talking right now. Like, we've never heard each other's voices. And we decided to record. And, I mean, it worked out perfectly. I mean, he went to broadcasting school. I mean, that, you know, like it still blows my mind because, you know, when I started, and I'll go back and explain why I even started tweeting wrestling in the first place. But when I started tweeting, like, people were asking me to be on their podcast, and I was like, I've never been on a podcast before. I don't know how this works, you know, and I didn't know how to choose, like, what I should do, or so I would listen to people's podcasts and try and determine like whether I would have chemistry with them. And a lot of the people that approached me early on were like a lot of negative podcasts, and so it's like I couldn't be on those shows because that's not the type of fan that I am. I didn't feel like the chemistry would be there. I mean, I'm not going to be on a show where the other person is just like complaining and yelling for like an hour about why they hate the product, and I'm there like, I love the product. So, you know, so I turned down a lot of people, and Damien and I have been really good friends, and I like had a feeling that he would be great to podcast with. And I didn't know that he was in broadcasting school until we went to do that first podcast. And so, you know, we've been doing it now for about a month, and we're on number 5, and he's a fantastic partner. We have great chemistry. Many people have asked us if we're dating. We haven't even met. We've never met in real life. He has a girlfriend, and you know, so it's like we just have really good chemistry. I think we look at wrestling very similarly, and that helps. He understands my point of view. He is not as happy, positive Marky Mark fan as me. He's more critical of it, but he understands my point of view. And he credits me for like bringing him back a bit to the fold because, you know, he was like maybe not feeling so positive about the product, and you know, the way that I explain things, he's like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe I can see it that way. And so I think I'm slowly turning him into a happy fan, a happy Marky Mark fan.
Sure.
But let me backtrack really quick because the reason why I even got on Twitter, I had a Twitter account starting in 2011. But like never used it. It was one of those like dormant accounts. I found the Cheap podcast with Peter Rosenberg just randomly. I don't know how, you know, like I think maybe I saw some article about it, or, you know, like I just found it like randomly, and I listened to it, and it blew my mind because I did not know that wrestling podcasts existed before I listened to Cheap Heat podcasts starting, I would say August of last year. Yeah. I mean, you know, because, and I had started to watch wrestling again earlier last year because a friend of mine works for WWE, and he got me tickets here in Chicago. And so, you know, he was like, hey, do you want tickets? And I was like, I haven't been to a wrestling show in probably 10 years. The last wrestling show I went to was in 2006, and so I just hadn't been in a while, and I was like, yeah, they were free tickets, and so I go to the event, and it's a Raw, and I just fell back in love. I mean, it was easy. It was absolutely easy. You know, like Shield was still together. I love that. I mean, it was like, you know, seeing an old friend. Like it just clicked again, and then I watched Raw the next week, and then I got back into the storylines, and then I would say a couple months later, I found Cheap Heat. And it just blew my mind because, you know, I'd been gone from the sport for maybe like 7-8 years, and there weren't podcasts, you know, like in 2006 or 2005. People weren't talking about wrestling anyway at all. Like, you know, like you couldn't find, like if I wanted to find wrestling friends in like 2005 or 2006, like maybe I'd go to like a discussion board or something, but it just wasn't, there was no like organic way to find, especially to find fans who had the same outlook as you, and I was lucky to find Cheap Heat right away. I mean, like it's weird. I didn't. That was the very first podcast, and the tone of their podcast is pretty much the way that I look at
I
wrestling
got
as well. Um, if I had like
yeah.
if I had listened to something else like a negative one, who knows, I would have been like, oh, this is garbage, like wrestling
My
podcast suck sort of
I must
thing,
admit, your enthusiasm and your real love for it is contagious. So I
Oh,
appreciate it. Like
good.
I'm a smartass, and I'm inclined to be all
Hmm.
cynical and bitchy and stuff like that. But having a
Right.
friend who is like, no,
Yeah.
this is great, is you need to be positive. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that. You're a good influence in that respect.
Right.
So
Yeah, no, Damien says the same thing. I mean, it's like he's the same way, Um, he was not feeling good about it, and after talking to me a little bit, he's looking at things differently. So, I mean, I was really lucky to find Cheap Heat, because now that I've been doing like more research into finding other podcasts, it's really rare to find a podcast that has an outlook on
right,
wrestling that's similar to mine, or like is positive. And so it's just that they were having fun, and so I found them, and I started tweeting them, and one of my jokes or whatever went over really well, and so I just started tweeting more, and I noticed that people were live tweeting, and so I started live tweeting Raw, I would say, like last like November, December, so not very long ago. This has been a
right.
very fast ride for me. So I started live tweeting around then, and then had some people asking me to be on their podcast earlier this year. And Damien and I did our first podcast
Right.
the week before
Right.
WrestleMania. So, and since then, I've been podcasting away. I've been on the
Yep.
Matman podcast, and I'm on your podcast now. And so it's just been
Yeah.
a whirlwind, and it's been super exciting. And I feel like I've been living and eating wrestling
How
24/7
do you have
for the
time for
last
other
like two
stuff?
months.
Like, your dog and
I don't. I don't. I kind of feel like a kid again, because this is how my life was when I was a kid. Like when I was a kid, I was like watching Raw, or like watching, like Sunday Night Heat or whatever, like reading magazines. I just went to school and like watched wrestling. Like that was my thing, and that's kind of what my life has become in the last couple months. Because I'm lucky enough to have a job where I can, like listen to a podcast, or like have something playing in the background. And so once I started tweeting and podcasting, I wanted to educate myself more, because I figured out there were things that I was missing. New Japan was something totally new to me. Lucha Underground was new, and all these different things. And so I was like, I need to educate myself a little bit more. So pretty much my day goes either wrestling, like an actual wrestling show, or a podcast is running in the background at work the whole time. And most days I come home, I'm either like live tweeting
and
or
she is,
chatting
folks. She
or
really is.
podcasting.
And she responds
Yeah.
too. So,
I mean, so I'm with you. I mean, so right before I got on with you, I was live tweeting SmackDown, and then the night before, I was chatting during Lucha Underground, and then podcasting with Damien. So 4 hours yesterday, and then probably another,
wow, that's
three and a
dedication
half
right
today.
there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I've made a lot of friends, through Twitter, who run
Hmm.
wrestling sites, and they work so hard, and when I met them, I was like, you can take a break from wrestling every once in a while, blah, and I would just give them a hard time about it. But now that I've kind of like dived in head first, I get it. Like I was just talking to my friend that runs Cage Side Seats, and I was like, I
Right.
totally understand your life now. Like, like I wrestling like 24/7. Like when I'm not sleeping, wrestling is on, like it's in my ears, or like in front of me, or something. And I people are like, oh, you might get burnt out, but I don't even feel that way. And he told me, he's like, when you have a passion for it, like it just,
Yeah.
like it's natural, like it just kind of like comes naturally to you. So I don't feel burned out yet. I mean, I've enjoyed every part of this, and so I really hope that I don't get burned out. I mean, there
Sure.
are like half days where I don't watch wrestling, or I don't like tweet, but that's pretty much what's consumed my life, I would say, the
Wow.
last like 2 months, and
Okay.
it's been really fun.
What's weird is like, are you ever like, I'm going out for drinks tonight, or I'm gonna go out to dinner tonight?
So
Okay.
I'm an introvert anyway. So it's like if it wasn't, when I wasn't watching wrestling, I was usually at home watching
Yeah.
TV. Like I love TV. It's like I'm super into Game of Thrones and like, I'm into like comedies, like British comedies and things like that. And so when my downtime was always watching TV. So now it's just like watching the network or watching, like Raw or Lucha Underground. So, and I still make time for Game of Thrones and things like that. But, I was at home anyway. I'm a homebody. This might be weird to hear, but I consider myself an introvert. So I don't typically go out. So I'm like not that person. I'm, like I stay home and I watch wrestling
What
or
other
like,
hobbies do you have?
TV.
Any creative stuff?
I would, not really. I mean, this is, I've written a couple things. Like I said, I was an English major. I've written, a couple things that have been published. That's probably like the only creative thing. But,
Yeah.
I've done improv, like for a little bit. But not really anything consistent, where I felt like I could be creative, all the time. And, in terms of hobbies, I would say probably the other thing that dominates my life is travel. There's
Oh,
there's a
cool.
painting from Shanghai behind me. So I've done more than 25 countries. Yeah, I've done 25,
Wow.
26 countries in the last like 10 years. So it's international travel is a big priority for me, and I would actually really, really love to move overseas at some point. So that's something that I try to make time for. I use all my vacation days, and my family is nice enough to understand that sometimes I'm not home for Christmas because you got to take the chance, and like if you can go to Russia for
Exactly.
Christmas, go to Russia for Christmas. So yeah, I mean I'm a big traveler. um, I mean that's really like the two things that pretty much define my life at this point is wrestling and traveling. I went to Peru like
That's
2 weeks
right.
ago or 3 weeks ago, and I had trouble. I couldn't, I was like, oh, I won't be able to watch Raw and all this different stuff. And I found the
Did you
Peruvian
really?
feed in Spanish, of Raw, and it just freaked me out. Yeah, it was amazing. And
Wow.
what kind of sucked, is that Enzo and Cass debuted, and I was waiting for them to debut, and they debuted when I'm in Peru with the Spanish telecast over it, so I couldn't hear anything that Enzo said. So I'm sitting in my hotel room in Lima, Peru, watching Enzo and Cass debut on the main roster, and I
Wow.
can't hear their promo. I started fire Spanish, like on top, I can sort of hear it like underneath, but it was awesome. So I was marking out, but I kind of feel like I missed that moment, like if I was at home, I probably would have marked out even more because, they cut this amazing promo, and I've just been waiting for them to get on the main roster for so long. And, yeah, I mean, so even when I'm traveling, I'm like, I
Nice.
gotta find ways to
Nice.
watch
Do
wrestling.
you think, I just thought of something. I'll just throw it out there for food for thought. What do you think? Isn't it
Yeah.
ironic that the Roman Reigns thing and the fans rejecting him, there's a whole parallel with that and the Donald Trump thing a little
Hmm.
bit? Do you see any similarities?
There's there's parallels everywhere. So the little piece that I wrote,
I have
actually, I don't know if you
not
watch Game
not
of
this season
Thrones.
yet, but we
Um,
do watch it.
yeah. Okay, so you know
Yes.
like the concept of it. Um, yeah, yeah. Okay, so it's funny because I went to Payback on Sunday, and then I watched the episode. It was like midnight, but I watched the current episode of Game of Thrones
Right.
because I didn't want anyone to spoil it for me, and I think that really shaded my thoughts about Payback and the current state of WWE, because the way I see it, Roman Reigns is pretty much at King's
Right.
Landing. He's pretty much Joffrey. Like he's an insignificant king. Um, and that people hate him, they love him, they don't feel like he's deserving of the championship. So really, the story
Right.
is about the people competing for it, and so I feel like he's just a figurehead, that they're using to put the spotlight on everyone else, like
So,
on the roster. So that's how I see the parallel with that. I mean, the Trump
yeah.
thing, I've kind of detached a little bit. I'm super into politics too. I mean, uh, if you caught me watching TV, 4 months ago, I'm watching like MSNBC, or like, I'm like super into politics. I get into the presidential
Me too.
years, the campaign years, like a lot. But this year's has been a little sad. So
Yeah.
so I've detached, and like I'm just throwing myself into wrestling, and I don't know.
I agree. I
I don't really
agree.
want
I
to
don't
talk
really
about
want to
Donald
talk
Trump.
about him either. But I just saw that as a parallel. I thought I'd throw that out as, as a fellow literary person. I was a history major. You're an
Yeah,
English major.
yeah, hmm,
There's definitely some
yeah,
connection there. I don't know what. I don't think there's some PhD candidate that needs to do a
hmm,
thesis on Roman Reigns and Donald Trump.
right,
Uh,
right. Yeah, wrestling and dumb, because a lot of people like to use that parallel that the
yeah,
campaign's been like professional wrestling, but it's a lot of
yeah.
talking heads that are saying that. You know what I mean? It's not like wrestling historians that are saying that. It's just some like newscasters. So I mean, there are parallels, but I think you have to
Right.
dig deeply into both to find. I'm sure to find like really
What was the other
really
thing I was
crazy
going to ask
parallels.
you about real quick? Um, Bullet Club.
We got
And then I got to
sidetracked on a
ask you
lot of
about, you
stuff.
have some wrestling crushes, or growing up you had wrestling crushes, like you had.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh yeah, totally.
but the
Yeah.
Go
So
on. I'm
Bullet
sorry.
Club, I
Yeah, I don't
I
either.
don't know that much about. Yeah, that's okay. So Bullet Club is. Hmm. I don't like and the thing is, I was trying. I knew that Gallows and Anderson had been signed to WWE, and people were waiting for them to debut, and people were waiting to see what WWE was going to do with Bullet Club. So I did like a rush to try and educate myself about what they were and what they were in New Japan. Um, and I talked about this on some other podcasts, but I was kind of shocked because I like YouTube searched Bullet Club, and I ended up finding this promo with
Yeah.
Finn Balor and Gallows and Anderson in like a dusty back room. And it looked like
Huh.
an ISIS propaganda video. Like it was scary. Like I don't know if I've just been too ingrained in
Yeah.
the PG era, but I was so like because Finn was cursing, like he was saying bad words, and I have a friend that lived in Japan, and I was like, they're cursing, and he's like, yeah, because Japanese people don't care about American curse words, so Finn can say like all the f bombs he wants, and nobody, it doesn't matter. But as somebody that's been watching the product for the last like 4 years, that
Yeah.
like that was like NWO time. And so I went to Twitter immediately, and I was just like, so they're
Absolutely.
NWO, and everybody's like, yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much,
The
if not darker,
the
because
rub
I
was
feel like
though,
they
like
they can do
the
more.
fact that they were breaking rules and causing DQs and stuff like that. It goes totally against the
Hmm.
Japanese wrestling culture. So there was like
Right, right, yeah. So
they
it's
loved them, but
really rebellious.
I mean, there's a whole respect thing over there, and so that's why you
Hmm.
watch the matches just and they'll be quiet, and then
Hmm.
when a move gets pulled off successfully, then they cheer and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you've watched the NWO, it's the
Hmm.
same thing, really. But the great
Right. Same idea. I mean, and
Um, I just think it's
go
awesome
ahead.
technology. Is like, these guys show up. They haven't wrestled in America really, on or maybe indies, but they haven't wrestled on a main event level
Hmm.
in what
Hmm.
like ever. And everybody in that arena knew who they were.
Right.
You know?
Right. Oh my gosh. I mean, it was that's the thing. Everybody, and I've talked about this before on some other podcasts that I think everybody's using that to their
Right.
advantage. This information age, and so I feel like WWE purposely doesn't give us any context or backstory because they let the fans do their own investigative work. Because they want them to go to the network and find out who somebody is and look at old matches and things like that. And so it's all part of this now. It's all about like clicks and impressions and things like that. And so, you're not going to get the full story of who this person is and why they're here. You have to go find it yourself, or you can make up your own opinion. Which, so my point when I was saying that I was researching them was that so I was researching them a little bit, and then they debuted, and I tried to make my own judgment about what I felt about Anderson and
Right.
Gallows, and I liked it better that way. Like some people were telling me they were like, no, you should go like watch all the matches and like really get to know them, and I'm like, no, look, they're showing up. It is so like NWO NWO to me by having a lack of knowledge of what they are. I
Absolutely.
could
It's
just
more
understand
organic that
as they
way,
were
you
at that
know?
moment. And at that moment, they were, they were like intruders just coming from the crowd, which, they used to do that in NWO, and just beating people up for no reason. And so, it allowed me to organically, take their
I
characters
mean,
in
you know a little bit of the backstory.
and
Yeah,
just,
you're
I haven't
smart
been
that
trying that
way.
hard. Yeah. Yeah. I know a little bit about it. Yeah. I mean, I'm not. I don't want to go in there thinking, oh, they're totally going to be like Bullet Club, because then you're just going to
Absolutely.
be disappointed.
Absolutely.
Get a
And they're
little bit
not
of
they're
information.
not they're not named the Bullet
Go
Club
from
yet though,
there.
right? They're just Gallows and whatever. Okay.
Right. They're Gals and Anderson, and my friend at WWE, and I've revealed
Ooh,
this on a couple other
let's hear it.
podcasts, so it's not big spoiler alert anymore. Is that it will
Okay.
never ever be Bullet Club, and then it won't
Okay.
ever be a club, period. Like you'll see them like team like the way that they did on Monday,
Really?
but they're not going to be like a faction. They reference the
Uh-huh.
club that they were in Japan, but in
Oh,
WWE,
okay.
we're not going to see them as like a stable. So they're just going to be friends. They're going to be friends from Japan who used to like be in a club or something. So you're not going to get any
Aw.
references to Bullet Club or anything close to that. Yeah. So I know that's the tough thing. So I found that on Monday, and I know there's still people that are still hoping for
It
the
ain't
Bullet
gonna
Club, but
happen.
spoiler alert,
Um,
that's not going to happen.
I mean, you
Yeah, it's not going to
let
happen.
discover them who they are now. I mean, the Bullet Club's already happened. What does it
Yeah.
mean? I mean,
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think it's all part of the storyline right now, because I also wrote, the way that it's like Game of Thrones is that they're shading
right.
everybody in shades of gray. Like everybody is like neither good nor bad. And the same thing goes for Gals and Anderson. It's like you don't know if they're seemingly just trying to help their friend AJ by beating up the Usos, but what's their intent? And so everybody is just sort of stuck in the middle. And so you can make your mind up about who you like. And so it's weird because Damien, this is on our podcast that just came out tonight. He's
Is he
hanging
really?
around on Roman Reigns, and I think that's what WWE wanted. Like by creating shades of gray, you can have people interpret things any way that they want. And so one person will see somebody as bad, one person will see them as good. And Damien has been not wanting Roman Reigns to be the guy for a long time, and just like within like a week, he's like, yeah, you know what? Like he's pretty good. So I mean, it's really interesting. It's really interesting what they're doing. If you watch like Breaking Bad or Game of Thrones, where
Yeah.
a lot of the characters are sort of in the middle, I think that's what the roster is right now. Like a lot of it's just like you decide who you like. I mean, it doesn't really matter who's a heel or a face. Either you like them or they don't, and sometimes they do good stuff, sometimes
Yeah. Yeah.
they do bad
So,
stuff.
all right, I gotta
Hmm.
actually wrap this up. I could talk to you forever, but I have dogs to walk and gotta.
Yeah.
I hear the kid is still up and stuff like that, so I got to. He's a late night kid, though.
Oh
He's
no!
a
Oh, he
late
needs to
night
go to
kid.
bed.
We're a late night family, so yeah.
So am I. I mean, come on. Yeah, I get it. Well, we can do this again sometime. So we can
Absolutely.
continue our
So
conversation
at
at another time.
Marky
Definitely.
Smark is your Twitter. Okay,
The
and
Marky Smart.
it's
Yeah,
Dare to
the
be
Marky
Damien
Smart.
podcast with the number two Damien podcast, which
Hmm.
is on set. Okay,
Hmm. And the
it's
letter
a
B.
set and talk show.
SoundCloud
Awesome.
and TalkShoe. Yeah, and so if you follow me on Twitter, you'll see links to his site and our podcast and things like that. So I have it all covered. Like if you follow me on
You're
Facebook,
probably like the
anywhere,
nicest
Instagram,
person on the
you'll see it
internet
all
I've
there.
ever sort of chatted to. So yeah,
I'm
you're not
trying
jaded
to
at
stay
all.
that way too. So, and yeah, no, well, I mean, you've been awesome. Everybody that I've dealt with in this whole process has been amazing. And so, I just hope it stays that way, and hope I
Great. Yeah,
remain
don't
the
ever
happy,
change, as they say
optimistic
in
fan that
Hollywood.
I am.
So I will gut this
Yeah.
up probably in the next day or so, and I'll let you know once it's ready to get posted and stuff like that. Hey,
Okay.
great talking to you, Trina.
Okay. Thank
Take
you so
care.
much, Ethan.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Well, that is it, huh? How about that? Let's give ourselves a little bit of the old music here, huh? How about that, huh? Let's see here. Okay, here we go. 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 All right. Well, that's the podcast, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. And let's see here. All right. Here we go. Here we go.